Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Krasi and this video will be about the future of the war. How long this war in the Middle East, the war between Israel and Palestine will take. Now, before you hear my answer, astrological consideration on that, briefly, I will be showing you the horoscope of Israel. We have very clear date of the horoscope of the creation of Israel from 1948. We have very clear date. After I make a very brief overview of the horoscope of Israel, we will see how the date of 7th of October of this year is applying on the horoscope of Israel, and this will show us how long the war will take, because we'll be looking at some very important astrological considerations, which will be the period that the cycle that the country Israel is in. And of course, we'll be seeing how this cycle is applying to both, to the war, to the future of the country. Unfortunately, we cannot look at the horoscope of Palestine because there is no such reliable horoscope. We do not know, and we know that Palestine is a very, very ancient culture and country. Very, very ancient. It's very hard to find the horoscope of Palestine. Nevertheless, there are some horoscopes in the internet, but I don't find them reliable. Therefore, we use the horoscope of Israel, which is pretty reliable. We see the beginning of the war, and then we will be making our assumptions based on that. I will share my screen with you. Take a look. This is the horoscope of Israel, and actually the day is 14 May 1948, 4:15 p.m. in Tel Aviv. This is the known date of the creation of Israel. I will be not taking sides, not at all, because it is not appropriate. We'll just look at the horoscope of Israel, of the creation of the country. You know, especially, actually, you know that every country, the horoscopes are not just horoscopes which just happen like that occasionally. No, these are very well thought new beginnings. Every new beginning is showing how the future of the country will look like. It's like a new birth. So is the horoscope of the United States, every country. And be sure that the date of the creation of any country, especially such esoteric country like Israel, be sure that this is very well thought, and it has specific meaning. And here you go. If it's not very clear to you, I will be explaining. So you see, you have the 30 degrees of Libra ascendant of the horoscope of Israel. Let me tell you, according to the ancient astrology, I will be brief. This will not be just horoscope analysis of Israel, but this will lead to my proposition on how long the war will continue. So, you see, this is the 30 degrees of Libra, and the 30 degrees of Libra, according to the ancient zodiac, and as you know, in this sidereal astrology, we take into consideration the specific degrees, because there are billions of stars, and every star is having own projection on the ecliptic or on a specific degree in question. So here you go, you have 30 degrees of Libra, and we know what you have there. You have the very strong Saturnine term. The terms in the ancient astrology are sections with unequal length, which have rulership of a planet. And the first term of Libra is very powerful because Saturn is exalted in Libra. This is his hidden place. And also, the first degree, the Saturn in term of Libra, is considered to be very powerful, with full of potentials of powers. In addition, the constellation, the bed like what we lay on a bed, is projected exactly on these 30 degrees of Libra. According to some Hermetic texts, this particular degree is giving comfortable. You feel comfortable with this particular degree. Then Venus, which is ruling the horoscope of Israel is in the 11 degrees of Libra, in the vicinity of a star related to business and trade. What is Venus doing in Libra? Let me tell you, it's very interesting. Venus, you see, this is Venus here, you see in Libra, and this is Mercury in Taurus, and these two planets, Venus and Mercury, exchanged their places. In astrology, we call this mutual reception. So you have Venus in Libra in the house of Venus in Gemini. What am I talking? Excuse me. Venus in Gemini and Mercury in Taurus, and Venus and Mercury, they exchange their positions. Venus is in the ninth house, trine in the ascendant. This is very good. But when the two planets, Venus and Mercury, have exchanged positions, this is very powerful for money, for trade, for international relationships, because we're talking about the ninth house of the zodiac, which is about your long distance relationships. And then you have Mercury, who is ruling the place of the ruler of the ascendant, which is Venus, in the vicinity of the star Aldebaran. And you know, in the ancient astrology, we denote great attention to the four royal stars. One of them is Aldebaran, and this is the star, the most powerful star of money and power, and this is the star in the eye of the bull, the star of Aldebaran. So Mercury, who rules the ruler of the ascendant, is conjoined to Aldebaran, very strong, very powerful, potent in terms of finances. And also, here comes the most interesting part. Mercury is visible, and this is not very often to be seen, because Mercury is the planet which is nearest to the sun. As such, we don't see easily Mercury on the sky. Sometimes when he is visible, even you cannot detect him easily, because it will be a just short moment just before the sun rises if Mercury is a morning star, or the same is valid for the evening if Mercury is an evening star. Anyhow, this Mercury is visible, and you see this in approximately 8 to 9% of the horoscopes. It's a rare opportunity, which the ones who wanted to, to find powerful date for the creation of Israel found, visible Mercury conjoined the star Aldebaran, royal star, and we have only 4 such stars. And then you have Venus in stars in the vicinity of degree, which is related to trade, business. And this is very, 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 very powerful. Then you have the moon you see the moon here, you see the mid-heaven is in the 5th degrees of Cancer, and the moon is in the 11 degrees of Cancer in her own place. The moon in the mundane astrology, when you look at the horoscope of a country, is representing the nation, the people. Yes, you will say at first sight, oh, but this gives amazing power and potentials to the people of Israel. But look what, 11 degrees of Cancer, we've got the nebula of Cancer. Nebula is particular, it is like a cloud of many stars together, and these many stars together form a cloud. This cloud, what you think when you hear cloud? Cloudy, not clear to see, cloudy. So this cloud is where the people of Israel are placed in a cloud. And by the way, this cloud, the nebula Persepe is called, of Cancer, is malefic, not good. It oftentimes would give, hardships, and also it gives unclarity, like they put you in a total lack of clarity, lie, deception, like people are not really openly seeing the truth because nobody is telling them the truth, so they live in a sort of a cloud. And this is 11 degrees of Cancer, the nebula. Yes, you will say the moon is powerful there. Indeed, the moon is powerful, but in a cloud. And these are the people of Israel, which are subject of, lack of information or misinformation or deception and whatnot. And and the moon is conjoined Pluto, and also Saturn is, you see, fallen in the 23rd degrees of Cancer. This is what to tell you. This is quite challenging. It gives hardships for the people of Israel. But when the moon is waxing, as it is, and Saturn as a diurnal planet, when they're forming conjunction, it is not certainly not so bad, but it is challenging. It shows exactly challenges which may come through the government or the rulership, and the rulership is fallen, which shows that the rulership is not powerful enough. It can easily be subject of somebody else's manipulation, because Saturn and the sign of Capricorn is where you have the rulers in one country, and Saturn is the father, he's the ruler, and Saturn is fallen, which shows that these people maybe will only show that they have power, but do they have power? The rulers of the country, maybe they're subject of somebody else's, rulership. Yes, they're just a subject of somebody else's rulership. Now, then you have the sun who rules the 11th house. 11th house is related to money. 11th house is related to, the social appearance of the country. And the sun, you will say, oh, but the sun is exalted in Aries. It is. The sun is exalted in Aries, and it will probably promise finances to the country, but it is in the degrees very near Algol, the Medusa Gorgona, which I absolutely I can tell you this is a very powerful image on the sky, and it can have the two sides. Can be either, can be both. Can be very benevolent, very useful for protection, for money, but can also be malefic. And when it comes to mundane astrology, usually these images are not benevolent. So this is one thing. This is the position of the sun. And then you have Mars in the 11th house, right in the heart of the lion. This brings vulnerability to the country, constant vulnerability from wars. It gives vulnerability from international relationships, diplomacy and whatnot. And I will tell you what it gives. The Mars is in the heart of the lion. Vulnerability of the heart. I don't know how this may sound to you, but the first thought I had is, because what above so below, and I was thinking, but this can mean eventually vulnerability of heart diseases, increased number of heart disease. And also Mars in a diurnal horoscope is very afflicting. And here comes the most interesting thing. On the 7th of October, Mars, who is afflicting, who is causing challenges, was in the 3rd degrees of Libra, right on the ascendant of Israel. And at that moment, the moon had no course, which is putting basically the country in a situation of not much to do, no course. So, and then let me tell you, you noticed these are the two lunar nodes, Ketu and Rahu. And in the ancient astrology, Ketu and Rahu, this is the dragon cut into two, because these are the places where the moon is crossing the path of the sun. And Ketu, who is on the ascendant of Israel, is always showing what we detach ourselves from. And Rahu is showing what we are desiring to reach, what the soul wants to reach. And we're talking about collective soul here, the collective soul of the people of the country. And you have Rahu on the ascendant, which is kind of detaching, like the people are not so important, but Rahu on the 7th house is showing that business, partnerships are more important than the people themselves. It's like they're placed on a secondary position. And I forgot to mention that Jupiter is very, very powerful, like really a wonderful placement of Jupiter in the third house, forming opposition with Uranus and Venus. This actually is exactly on the axis of trade, international communication, travel, and this is what actually these people there do. They are good in trade, they travel a lot and all this. But like I started with Mars at the moment of this war or renewal of a war, because this war is there forever since I remember myself. I don't know how long. So Mars was exactly on the 3rd degrees of Libra. And this happened one day after the lunar nodes moved into 6th, 12th houses axis of Israel. Rahu moved in Pisces, Ketu moved in Virgo, and this will be their next cycle of 18 months. And I will remind you too that these lunar nodes here you see on the axis of Libra Aries, this was the case. We had them as transit in Libra Aries for the last 18 months, and this caused all these eclipses. For the last 2 years, the eclipses happened right on the ascendant and descendant of Israel, which is a factor triggering change, triggering something big change, something heavy, and so on. And in addition, I will tell you, Saturn right now is transiting on the 5th house of Israel, and he entered this place on end of January of 2023. Before that, Saturn was for 3 years, since 21st December 2021 until January 2023, Saturn was on their lower meridian in Capricorn. And all these 3 years, the Saturn was making opposition to the moon. This was very, very heavy. This was cooking something very difficult to take place, something which will have long-lasting effect. Because also here, 2 years ago, Saturn and Pluto met. They formed conjunction, very heavy, making opposition to the moon of Israel. In addition, we had many other factors, like if you remember, we had Jupiter Saturn conjunction, which took place in 21st December 2021, the Great Conjunction, which is a factor not bad. This conjunction is a raw conjunction, but always promises change, together with some spiritual awakening of the people. In addition, Uranus is here, and Uranus is in the vicinity of Rahu now and at the moment of the war, triggering. And Uranus is major power. He is, represented by God Anu on the sky. We're talking about major event which will have impact on the whole world. Major event. Also, let me tell you the most interesting factor. In October, Israel entered the Rahu period. See, they entered the Rahu period, which period will be approximately 22-3 years long. The question is, how long will this war take? Considering all the factors which I just listed, I am not sure that this war, this time, will be just a temporary burst out of a sort of war-like situation. No, I think this time this will last. And this is because of what I told you. Saturn, and by the way, Jupiter-Saturn conjoined in the 7 degrees Capricorn, very near the lower meridian. Saturn Pluto met, I think it was also the beginning, very near lower meridian, very, very major. Then in last year, it was August, we had Rahu, Uranus, Mars, very rare conjunction, and it happened in the vicinity of the Sun and the syzygy point of the horoscope. Major triggering factors. Now, only the cycle of Mars, which started with the conjunction between Sun and Mars on the 18th of November, only this conjunction is already, and it is happening actually in Scorpio, which is, well, of course, it is the house which is related to, you say this is Scorpio is the house of money, and it may not be directly related, but it is forming aspects. In the whole horoscope, it is forming aspects to the moon. It is forming, and the cycle of Mars is starting with the new appearance of Mars, which will happen on 7th of May of 2024, and it is happening in the first degrees of Pisces here, and this will form a square to Venus, the ruler of the ascendant of Israel. And as I told you, Mars is not a benevolent planet in the horoscope of Israel. To me, these are factors which are not promising peace right away. The war may take a minimum up until the cycle of Mars, which is 15 to 7 months from his appearance, which is the spring of 2024. In addition, I showed you which astrological factors prepared the war in the Middle East to burst out again. So this is an important thing I wanted to tell you. So to me, the minimum I'm counting from the spring of 2024, the war will last 15 to 17 months. But considering the other major cycles, like the fact that the country entered a Rahu cycle around the moment of the beginning of the war, and this cycle lasts 20 years, I would not even, it could be that this war lasts really, really quite some time, unfortunately. How the war will have impact on the other parts of the world, I'm preparing analysis with the horoscope of in the United States, Europe, because we have the date of the creation of the European Union, and of course Russia as major, powers, and I will see how this will have impact on the other parts of the world. But I don't see this really finishing within 1 or 2 months, certainly not. And this, this made me think of, I mentioned in previous video, maybe this would be interesting for you, the Russian angel. This was a boy who was born in 1982 and died in 1993. So he lived only 10 years. He died just before his birthday. And he was considered the great prophet, angel. They called him the Otrok, the great prophet, the angel of Russia. And this boy, back then, 30 years ago, he predicted all these events, the pandemic which they cooked for us. He predicted the war in Ukraine. I just recently found out about him, and why am I saying, why am I speaking now about the Russian angel? Is because he increased my faith, because he was explaining how actually when we have belief, faith in ourselves, in the Creator, in God, we are able, we are just very, very mighty, very, very powerful. So talking about this war now in Israel, when I looked, at the cycle of that they entered, cycle of Rahu, which is not benevolent in the horoscope of Israel, because he's in the 20th degrees of Aries. And what you have, these are the back parts of the body of Aries. This is a bad degree. So their Rahu is not good. And they enter the cycle of Rahu. Seventh house in astrology, together with being house of relationships, business, is also house of your visible enemies. So their Rahu is in the house of the visible enemies in the back parts of Aries. And they entered cycle of Aries, which will be a cycle of 20 and more years. And they entered this cycle just around the timing of the war. And then when I saw what the Russian boy predicted, he said that there will be war in Ukraine because Ukraine would betray Russia. But then he said that there will be war in Israel, and this war may last approximately 20 years. And this reminded me, and then I was thinking about the cycle of Rahu, which speaks about the same eventually quite long unrest, in the Middle East. I hope that I'm not right, but this may eventually take some time. Again, we can pray. Of course, I will remind you what the wise man said. When there is only one person in a village of 10,000, and if this one person is decent, his or her prayers will be heard by the Creator, and this person will save the whole village. So we can pray for these people and God to change his mind, and this to be over sooner than it looks like. So still I'm positive that things may really change if people change their view on spirituality, on the events which are taking place. So ladies and gentlemen, let's really pray this to be just like awakening, like something that will need to wake us up, something like that. So please comment. I'm reading your comments with great interest, and I'm very thankful for your attention. All the best to you. Bye bye.